Welcome to the Prescott Lab podcast, not just theory, practical science for everyone. I'm Dr. Jonathan Prescott, a physician and integrative medicine researcher at the Ravenshade Institute for Human Health. And tonight, I want you to imagine we're not separated by a microphone or a screen. Imagine instead that you're here in my study, sitting across from me in a leather chair that's worn just enough to be comfortable. The lamplight is warm. The air smells faintly of cedar from the old bookshelf behind me, and outside the window, the evening sky is turning the color of old copper coins. It's the kind of quiet that invites honesty. The kind of moment where a man can say what's been on his mind without worrying about how it sounds. For many men over 60, there's a change they feel but rarely talk about. Not a sudden loss, but a slow, quiet dimming like a fire that still burns but no longer throws the same heat. The spark in the bedroom, once effortless, now takes longer to catch. The connection with your partner feels softer. The body still responds, but not with the same swiftness, the same strength. You might brush it off at first. Tell yourself it's just part of getting older. But somewhere deep down, you feel it, the frustration, the quiet doubt, the wondering if this is the way it has to be from now on. I've spent decades listening to men just like you, men who thought their only options were a pill, a risky procedure, or simply accepting a smaller, quieter version of themselves. But here's what I want to tell you tonight: there is another way. A safe, natural approach that can begin to restore what time has taken, not overnight, not like flipping a switch, but in a way that feels real, gradual, and lasting. And the most surprising part, you could start it tonight. In less than 2 minutes, with something so simple you might already have it in your home. Let's take a slow walk into what's really happening inside your body, because once you understand the cause, the path forward becomes clear. 1. The quiet changes after 60, what no one tells you. When I think about the changes men face after 60, I'm reminded of how the seasons shift. Winter doesn't arrive in one day, the air cools slowly, the leaves fade quietly, and before you realize it, you're standing in a different world. That's how it works for the body, too. The signs rarely announce themselves with alarms or flashing lights. They arrive quietly, almost politely, a little less drive here. A little more time needed there, until one day you realize the landscape has changed. It might start with something small. Maybe you notice it takes longer to get going during intimate moments. Maybe the firmness isn't quite the same, or the sensations feel muted, as if a layer of cloth has been laid between you and the world. Some men tell me they can still perform, but the experience feels less alive, less vivid. And that change, that subtle fading, carries a weight you can't quite put into words. The science behind it is clear, even if most men never hear it spelled out. Blood flow begins to slow as the years pass. The vessels feeding your most sensitive areas lose flexibility, delivering less oxygen-rich blood to the tissues that depend on it. Without that steady, robust supply, it's harder to maintain the strength and reliability you once had. Inside those tissues, tiny changes are happening too. Microscopic scars, little deposits of plaque, and a slow stiffening of the fibers reduce elasticity. The result: less comfort, less range, and sometimes even changes in shape or function. And then there's the quiet troublemaker, inflammation, not the kind that makes you ache in bed for a week, but a low, simmering burn in the pelvic region, invisible but persistent. Over time, it chips away at performance and recovery. Add in a gradual decline in nerve sensitivity, where those vital pleasure signals take longer to travel or feel weaker when they do arrive, and the experience naturally becomes quieter. Finally, the skin itself changes. With age, it can thin, lose moisture, and become more fragile, every touch feeling just a little different than it used to. These aren't signs that your best days are gone. They are signals, quiet messages from your body, that it needs a little more attention, a little more care, and the right kind of support to keep working the way it's meant to. And there is a time-tested, natural way to do exactly that, one that's been hiding in plain sight for centuries. Let's talk about why this humble golden oil has earned my attention after decades in men's health. 2. Understanding the root cause more than just age. Here's something I've learned after more than 3 decades of sitting across from men in my office. The body doesn't simply give up after 60. It's not a clock running out of time. It's an engine that's been running for decades without the same maintenance it once had. Think about your own car or truck. When it was new, the engine purred, the oil was clean, the lines were clear. But if you ran that vehicle for 60,000 miles without changing the oil, without clearing the fuel lines, without tending to the belts and seals, Would you really be surprised if it ran slower, rougher, with less power? That's exactly what happens inside a man's body. Age is just the calendar. The real wear and tear comes from what happens beneath the surface, the slow narrowing of blood vessels, the accumulation of microscopic scar tissue, the quiet rise of inflammation, and the gradual dulling of nerve pathways. Science has been very clear on this. Blood flow is central to intimate health. Studies published in journals like the Journal of Sexual Medicine show that endothelial function, the ability of your blood vessels to expand and contract, naturally declines with age, often accelerated by lifestyle factors like poor diet, lack of movement, and chronic stress. Less flexibility means less oxygen-rich blood reaching the tissues that depend on it for strong, dependable performance. Tissue stiffness is another overlooked culprit. Micro-scarring, sometimes linked to minor injuries or even the body's own repair processes, can accumulate in the penile tissue. Over time, these fibers lose their elasticity. Much like a leather glove left too long in the sun, it still fits, but it doesn't move the same way. Inflammation, even at a low grade, has a profound impact. Research in urology and andrology has shown that chronic pelvic inflammation can impair both erectile function and nerve conduction, creating an environment where recovery is slower and performance is less reliable. And finally, nerve sensitivity, those electrical pathways that carry signals of pleasure to your brain, can degrade subtly over time. This isn't just about sensation. It's about the brain's ability to trigger and sustain arousal. When those signals travel more slowly or lose clarity, the entire intimate experience feels muted. When you layer these factors together, reduced blood flow, stiffened tissue, persistent inflammation, and slower nerve response, you get the quiet, cumulative changes so many men notice after 60. But here's the part most men miss. These changes aren't destiny. They are conditions, and conditions can be improved. Your body is still capable of remarkable recovery if you give it the right inputs, the kind that improve circulation, soften and nourish tissue, calm inflammation, and reawaken nerve pathways. One of the simplest, safest tools I've found to address all of these factors at once is something that's been in human hands for thousands of years. A thick golden oil pressed from the seed of a humble plant. And while it might sound almost too simple, modern research confirms what ancient healers have always known. This oil has a unique ability to go deep, to work quietly but steadily, and to give back what time has taken. Let's talk about why castor oil deserves a permanent place in the conversation about men's health after 60. 3. Why castor oil may be the missing piece. When you hear the words castor oil, you might think of something your grandmother kept in a dark glass bottle on a kitchen shelf, or a remedy whispered about in old home health books. But this isn't just a relic from another time. In the right hands and used the right way, castor oil can become one of the simplest yet most powerful allies for man's health after 60. For over 3,000 years. From ancient Egypt to India's Ayurvedic tradition, castor oil has been used to reduce pain, soothe inflammation, and restore vitality to tired, overworked tissues. Back then, they didn't have the language of ricinoleic acid or microcirculation. They simply knew it worked. Today, science has caught up and we can explain why. Castor oil contains a unique fatty acid, ricinoleic acid, that's rarely found in such concentration in any other plant oil. Modern research, including studies in phytotherapy research and Journal of Ethnopharmacology, shows that ricinoleic acid has 3 properties especially relevant to a man's intimate health. Anti-inflammatory action, it calms the low-grade inflammation that can quietly impair erectile function and comfort. Circulation enhancement, it encourages vasodilation, meaning blood vessels open more fully to allow richer, oxygen-loaded blood into tissues. Deep tissue penetration, because of its molecular structure, castor oil can sink deeper into the skin and underlying tissues than most topical oils, delivering its benefits where they are needed most. What makes it truly unique for men over 60 is that it addresses several problems at once. It feeds and softens stiffened tissue, restoring some of the flexibility lost over years. It supports healthier blood flow, which in turn nourishes nerves and skin. It hydrates and protects fragile skin that's more vulnerable with age. And it does this without the risks and side effects that so many men fear from medication or invasive procedures. There's no prescription, no complicated equipment, no long recovery time, just a few drops of golden oil, warmed between your hands, and a quiet nightly ritual that takes less than 2 minutes. I've seen men dismiss it at first, assuming that something so simple couldn't possibly help with such a personal and complex issue. But the body often responds best to steady, gentle inputs, the kind that work with your physiology instead of forcing it. And when castor oil is used consistently and correctly, the changes can be surprisingly profound. Not a lightning strike, not a one-night miracle, but a gradual return of responsiveness, comfort, and connection. The key is knowing exactly what it can do for your intimate health and how those benefits build over time. So let's walk through the 5 most important ways castor oil can change the way your body feels and functions. 5 intimacy benefits you can't ignore. When I first began recommending castor oil to my patients, I could see the doubt in their eyes. Some would smile politely, others would let out a short chuckle as if I just suggested they fix an engine with a teacup of warm water. But the men who trusted the process, who stayed with it night after night, often came back weeks or months later with a different look in their eyes, a quiet confidence, a certain energy in their voice. That change isn't magic. It's the result of real, measurable effects happening inside the body. Let me walk you through the 5 that matter most for a man's intimate health after 60. 1. Restoring circulation where it counts. Think of your blood vessels as a network of country roads. Over time, potholes form, edges crumble, and traffic slows. Castor oil, with its ricinoleic acid, encourages vasodilation, a widening of those roads so more oxygen-rich blood can reach the tissues that need it most. Better circulation means stronger, more dependable responses when you need them. 2. Softening stiffened tissue. Years of micro-scarring can make the tissue less flexible, like a leather belt that's been left in the sun too long. Castor oil penetrates deeply, delivering fatty acids that nourish and soften those fibers, slowly restoring their natural give and comfort. 3. Calming inflammation. Chronic, low-grade inflammation is like a smoldering ember in the pelvic region, not always visible but always burning. Left alone, it damages cells, slows healing, and dulls function. Studies in inflammopharmacology confirm that ricinoleic acid reduces inflammatory mediators, helping to create a healthier environment for performance and recovery. 4. Supporting nerve sensitivity. As we age, the signals from our most sensitive areas can fade. This isn't just about pleasure, it's about the brain's ability to initiate and sustain arousal. By improving circulation and calming inflammation, castor oil helps keep those nerve pathways clear and responsive, so sensation feels sharper and more immediate. 5. Protecting and nourishing skin. Over time, the skin in intimate areas becomes thinner, drier, and more fragile. Castor oil hydrates deeply and locks in moisture, helping the skin remain supple and resilient. A well-nourished skin surface isn't just more comfortable, it's more receptive to touch. These 5 benefits don't work in isolation. They layer on top of each other, creating a compounding effect. Better blood flow feeds the nerves, softer tissue allows for fuller function, calmer inflammation supports faster recovery. The result is a body that begins to respond more naturally, as if it's waking up from a long, slow sleep. But none of this happens by accident. To see these changes, you need to know how to apply castor oil in a way that makes the most of its potential, hitting the right spot, at the right time with the right touch. And that's exactly what we'll cover next. 5. The right way to apply ritual that works. I've seen it too many times. A man hears about castor oil, buys a bottle, tries it once or twice, then decides it doesn't work. When I ask how he used it, the answer is often rushed, half-hearted, or applied in the wrong spot entirely. Natural remedies are a lot like planting a seed. The soil, the sunlight, the water, they all matter. And if you scatter it carelessly, you can't be surprised when nothing grows. So, here's how to turn this from something you tried into a nightly ritual that delivers results. First, choose quality. Look for 100% pure, cold-pressed, hexane-free castor oil. This gives you the richest concentration of ricinoleic acid without chemical residues that could irritate sensitive skin. Second, pick the right moment. The best time is at night, right after a warm shower. The heat opens your pores, relaxes your muscles, and makes your skin more receptive. You're also less likely to be interrupted, which matters. This isn't something you want to rush. Third, measure just enough. Pour about a quarter teaspoon into the palm of your hand. That small amount is plenty for the area we're targeting. Warm it between your hands for a few seconds. Feel the thickness, the weight of it. Fourth, know the key area. The most overlooked spot is the perineum, the small space between the base of your scrotum and your anus. This is where vital blood vessels and nerve pathways converge, and stimulating it can make a bigger difference than most men realize. Place your fingers gently on that spot and use slow, deliberate strokes toward the base of your penis and along the underside of the shaft. If you wish, apply a thin layer to the scrotum as well to nourish the skin. Your touch should be firm enough to stimulate circulation, but never harsh. You're not forcing the oil in, you're inviting it to sink. Move in a steady rhythm for 1 to 2 minutes. Think of it as polishing an old piece of wood, not sanding it down, but bringing back its natural luster. Fifth, commit to consistency. One night won't change you, but night after night, the small changes begin to add up. Warmer skin, easier responses. A sense of readiness you thought had faded. And here's the thing, while this ritual is designed with intimacy in mind, it has a way of creating ripples through the rest of your health. Many of my patients discover unexpected changes in their energy, comfort, and mobility that go far beyond the bedroom. That's what we'll explore next. The whole body benefits you might never expect from a few quiet minutes with this golden oil. 6. Beyond the bedroom, whole body ripple effects. When most men start this nightly castor oil ritual, they do it for one reason: to restore confidence and performance where it matters most. But the body isn't made up of separate rooms, it's one connected house. And when you start tending carefully to one corner, you often find the rest of the place begins to feel warmer, lighter, and more alive. One of the first things I hear from men after a few weeks is, "Doc, I feel lighter on my feet." That's not just in their imagination. Castor oil has been shown to support the lymphatic system, the body's natural drainage network. Think of it as the quiet cleaning crew working overnight to remove waste, toxins, and excess fluid. As we age, that crew slows down and the clutter builds up, leading to swelling in the ankles, puffiness, or just a general sense of heaviness. Gentle topical use of castor oil helps stimulate that flow, and when the lymphatic system moves better, you feel it everywhere. Then there's joint comfort. Some of my patients, men well into their 70s, have started rubbing castor oil into their knees or hands before bed, simply out of curiosity. Weeks later, they tell me their morning stiffness has eased. This isn't surprising. The anti-inflammatory properties of ricinoleic acid don't just help pelvic tissues. They work wherever inflammation is stealing mobility and comfort. Skin health is another quiet victory. Castor oil's deep hydration can soften rough elbows, heal dry patches, and even strengthen brittle nails. The men who once complained about chapped hands in winter find themselves noticing smoother skin without changing anything else in their routine. Some even report thicker, healthier-looking hair in their beard or along the hairline, not because castor oil is a miracle cure for hair loss, but because healthier skin creates a better environment for growth. And here's one more use that's been passed down through generations. With care, castor oil applied over the abdomen has traditionally been used to ease bloating and mild digestive discomfort. While not a replacement for medical treatment, some men find it a comforting ritual that helps them feel less bound up and more at ease. What I love most is that these benefits often arrive as pleasant surprises. You start for one reason, and along the way, your body begins to feel more integrated, more supported, more in sync. But talk is just talk until you see it lived out in a real man's life. That's why I want to share the story of a patient, a man who thought his best days were gone, until a simple change brought more than he expected. 7. Martin Hale's story proof in real life. Martin Hale was 72 when he first sat down in my office. A retired high school history teacher from a small town in Ohio, he had that steady, deliberate way of speaking that made you feel every word had been weighed before it left his mouth. From the outside, Martin looked like a man aging gracefully, still lean, still sharp-eyed, the kind of neighbor who mows his own lawn and fixes his own gutters. But as he settled into the chair across from me, he leaned forward slightly, lowered his voice, and said, "Doc, I'm losing something I didn't think I'd ever lose. My energy, my confidence in the bedroom, it's fading, and I can feel the distance growing between me and Elaine." Elaine was his wife of 46 years. They had weathered careers, raising children, and the loss of friends together. But Martin wasn't talking about romance in a sentimental sense. He was talking about presence, about showing up for her in a way that made them both feel alive. He didn't want pills. He didn't want procedures. What he wanted was something safe, natural, and steady, something that worked with his body instead of forcing it. I showed him the castor oil routine, explained the why and the how, and told him what I tell every man. This isn't about overnight miracles. It's about showing up for yourself consistently until your body remembers what it's capable of. Martin took it to heart. Every night after his shower, he warmed the oil between his hands, massaging it into the perineum up toward the base of the penis, slow and deliberate, just as I'd shown him. He didn't treat it as a chore. He treated it as a kind of quiet investment, like tending a small fire every night so it would be ready to burn brighter when needed. 8 weeks later, Martin came back, and before he even sat down, I could see it, the shift. His handshake was firmer, his eyes brighter. He smiled and said, "Elaine noticed before I did, I feel more awake, not 20 again but present, stronger, we're laughing more, we're closer. And Doc, I don't feel that quiet frustration anymore." What struck me wasn't just his improved performance, it was the way he carried himself. Shoulders back, voice steady. It's like a man who had reclaimed a part of himself he thought was gone. Martin's story is proof of something I've seen countless times. When you give your body the right care in the right way, even small, simple rituals can create profound change. But before any man begins, there's something just as important as the method itself: knowing the precautions, the boundaries, and the signs you should never ignore. 8 precautions every man should know. When a man hears the words safe and natural, it's easy to let his guard down. I understand the idea that something so gentle could do harm seems almost impossible. But here's the truth: safe and natural doesn't mean do it blindly. Over the years, I've met men who got excited about a natural approach, started using it diligently, and then made one quiet but critical mistake. They assumed it meant they no longer needed to see their doctor. I want to be absolutely clear: castor oil is not a replacement for professional medical care. It's a tool, and like any good tool, it works best when it's part of a bigger plan that includes regular checkups, honest conversations with your physician, and an awareness of your own body's warning signs. If you experience any of the following, pause the routine and seek medical advice. Persistent erectile dysfunction that doesn't improve over weeks or months, chronic pelvic pain or discomfort, unusual lumps, swelling, or changes in shape, blood in your urine or semen, sudden changes in sensation or function. These aren't inconveniences. They're dashboard warning lights, signals that something deeper may be happening, whether it's cardiovascular disease, diabetes, hormonal imbalance, or a prostate condition. Ignoring them won't make them disappear, it only gives them time to grow. And here's something I tell every man who sits in my office: seeking medical help is not weakness, it's the opposite. It's a decision to protect your health, your relationship, and your dignity. Your partner doesn't just want you here, she wants you here, healthy and fully present. When you combine professional guidance with a consistent, targeted self-care practice, you give yourself the best possible chance to not only improve your intimate life, but to protect it for years to come. And now that you understand the how and the when, it's time to put all of this together so you can see how a ritual of just a few minutes each night can ripple through your body, your confidence, and your connection. 9. Closing your move tonight. When you step back and look at everything we've shared tonight, it comes down to this: the changes you felt, the slower response, the quieter sensations, the moments you've second-guessed yourself, they're not the end. They're simply your body's way of asking for care. And now you know one of the simplest, safest, most time-tested ways to give it that care: castor oil. Humble, golden, deeply healing. It improves circulation, softens and nourishes tissue, calms inflammation, keeps your skin resilient, and reawakens the sensitivity you thought was gone for good. But here's what matters most: it's not about chasing youth. It's about showing up for yourself fully right now, being the man your partner can feel proud to stand beside, feeling present, confident, and connected again. So here's what I want you to do tonight after your shower. Take just 2 minutes. Warm the oil between your hands. Apply it with patience. Make it a quiet investment in yourself, knowing that each night builds on the last. And if this conversation tonight spoke to you, if you've been nodding along or even just feeling a spark of hope, let's keep this going. If you've forgotten to subscribe, now's the time to click that button so you never miss another talk like this. If you haven't hit like yet, do it now. It helps other men find this message when they need it most. And if you know someone who could benefit, share this with them. You might just be giving them back a piece of their life. I also want to hear from you. Leave me a comment, tell me if you're starting tonight, if you've tried this before, or if you have a question you've been carrying but never asked. I read them all and I'll do my best to answer. To every man listening, you're worth the care, the effort, and the time. And I'm wishing you health, strength, and a life lived fully starting tonight.